the Market Musings podcast with Fairbairn and Russell. Welcome back to another Market Musings podcast from Fairbairn and Russell. And today we're pleased to welcome a private investor who goes by the Twitter name Uranium Sam. So I guess you can imagine we'll be talking about uranium today, which would be fantastic as we've never spoken about uranium on our podcast. But it's certainly a commodity that looks like it's going to be hot, and there's certainly a big following around it. So I'm keen to learn some more. So Sam, you're very welcome. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, and of course we have Kenny joining us as well.
Yep. Hi Sam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Not a problem. Now Canada's a big place. Whereabouts are you from in Canada?
I'm from Ontario.
Ontario, all right. So that's a bit closer to us. That's on the east coast. That's right, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm in the southeast of Ontario.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. And how's the COVID situation over there?
It's not great. There's a lot of lockdowns. You can't really go out and do any activities besides picking up groceries or going on hikes. But fortunately, COVID is hopefully going to end this year. Fingers crossed, so we can go back to our normal life.
Yeah, it seems like a lifetime ago when you were able just to go down the pub and have a few pints.
Absolutely.
It's strange when you take something for granted and then it's taken away from you.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Absolutely.
It's going to be great when it comes back. There's going to be some amount of parties around the world, but it's great to have you on. And I know you specialise in uranium, and we're really interested to hear what you've got to say about it. But it'd be good if you can give us a wee bit about your sort of background. You know what you've done in your life so far, and you know what your goals are or your ambitions are in life.
For sure. So it's funny how I got into investing. In the beginning, I was in college, my first year, and it was around 2016 or so. And I was in college and I was in class and I wasn't really paying attention to class. It was just something about the stock market that kept on calling me. I think it was my calling. And I'm looking into stocks and all of that. I'm listening to podcasts and videos about very intelligent people talking about stocks. And I hear this podcast with John Kaiser from Kaiser Research.
Yep.
And he's talking about a few stocks, and for whatever reason, stock name Forum Energy grabbed my attention. It was Forum Uranium at that time. They changed their name to Forum Energy Metals. And so being the naive kid that I was, I got into that stock without doing much research of my own due diligence. I only listened to the expert. And at that time, they were trading at 10 cents. And between 2016 and basically 17 and 18, the stock plummeted, even 19 actually. And I'm in this sticky situation where I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. I didn't even know what the company really was. I knew it was exploration company. But I didn't do my research on it. I thought I could just buy in and then buy out. I had more of a trading mentality. Mm-hmm. So uranium came in when I eventually said enough is enough. I need to do my own research if I actually want to be successful in trading or investing or whatever I want to do. I need to do my own research. I can't just base it off of experts. And so I look into Forum Energy Metals, and I liked everything that I saw, even though I didn't have the experience. I guess it was beginner's luck. I just felt like Forum Energy was stock that I would want to invest in long term. But my background isn't really in finance or investing really. I was in school for marketing, so that was my beginning into finding out what uranium is and finding out about forum energy metals.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Forum at that particular time, from memory, because I know a bit about Forum myself, actually. I think at that time they were purely a uranium company. I think they had some prospects in the Athabasca Basin, I think, a couple of years ago. Obviously, now they've expanded into sort of copper and palladium and actually some cobalt as well. But before we go on to talk about Forum, why uranium, Sam? What's the big appeal about uranium? What draws you to it? What's your fascination with it?
So once Forum Energy, or at that time Forum Uranium, went down, I investigated what their commodity is, and their main commodity, or their only commodity at that time, because of their name being specifically uranium. I searched up what uranium is, and I got a lot of information. And so there was a quote though I like to share, and it was from Doug Casey, and it's, when the market wants into gold stocks, it's like trying to force the content of Hoover Dam through a garden hose. In the case of uranium stocks, it's more like this soda straw. It's a very small market. So based off of that quote, you can already tell that the uranium market was extremely, extremely small market compared to any other market, and compared to gold, silver, and all that. So I knew that price, the price that decreased, it was just broadly in uranium, and it wasn't just the market. So I knew that because of how tiny the uranium market was, it wasn't Forum Uranium or Forum Energy's fault in any which way, because basically every uranium company at that time was going down. So I looked into uranium, and I learned about Chernobyl, and I learned about Fukushima. So everyone knows what happened in Chernobyl. It's very tragic. But even after Chernobyl, around 2004 up to 2007, the uranium price went something around, I think it was 2003 or 4, that it was $8 per pound, and then at the peak of 2007, it was around $135 per pound. And in those in between those two times, there was a lot of companies such as Forum Uranium at that time that went berserk, and they had share prices around, I believe, $11 or $12 a share at the peak of 2007. And that was only Forum Uranium. There was another company called Paladin from Australia that went from 1 cent to $10. So you can only imagine how much this uranium market could fluctuate. So that really got my attention. And so what happened was 2008 is when the financial crisis happened, and all the uranium companies have went down drastically. And from 2008 or 9 up to 2011, they actually rebounded very hard, probably making investors rich the second time around within like a few years. And then what happened in 2011, I believe it was around March 15th or March 5th or March 15th. I don't know the exact date, but March 2011, Fukushima happened, where tsunami came in and really damaged Japan, and specifically it damaged the nuclear power plants of Japan, and it because once the nuclear power plant got damaged, it gave out radiation and people had to evacuate their city. And so ever since that happened, countries such as Germany was the biggest, had the biggest noise in terms of anti-nuclear and telling every other country, or basically every other country followed Germany in suit to shut down their nuclear power plants. So you can only imagine with what happened in Germany and what happened, what all the other countries following that, what happened to the uranium price. Too much supply came into the spot market, and that drove the uranium price way down. And it drove the price down to $18 in 2016. And that was just purely the cause of a huge surplus. And then that's also not even including secondary supply, which is like commercial inventories, reprocessing the spent fuel, sales by uranium enrichers, inventory by the government. All of that got into the uranium spot market, which just plummeted it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, I mean, uranium's quite strange because it's 3 or 4 countries that pretty much dominate the supply, isn't it? I mean, I think it's Australia, Canada, Russia, and is it Kazakhstan? I think are sort of 4 main players in the uranium market.
Yes. So Canada, so Kazatomprom has the most uranium in terms of volume, from what I believe, but Canada has the highest grade of uranium. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. Actually, Australia has the most uranium. Forgive me. Australia has the most uranium. Canada has the highest grade of uranium, in particular in the Athabasca Basin.
Yep. And I've just brought up an actual, you're right there. So it's 28% Australia has the biggest reserves, but as you say, Canada has the
highest grade
in the Athabasca Basin. Yep. Yeah. I mean, you might not know, but we'll ask you anyway. I mean, what is uranium used for out with the nuclear industry? I mean, there's clearly other uses as well.
For sure. So a lot of mainstream media and mainstream media, basically in TV shows and all of that, they give this bad rep for uranium and nuclear power plants. So uranium is basically the fuel that keeps the nuclear power plant going, just like a gas for your car. And so the pros of nuclear energy are the low cost of operation, which carries down to the consumer, which doesn't pay as much for their energy bills, electrical bills. It's a stable baseload energy. So comparing that to renewable energy such as turbines and solar panels, they don't need the wind or the sun to function. They have their own baseload energy to function. So they're very reliable in that term. Produces the lowest pollution as well compared to coal and basically every other energy producer. It has the high energy density. So one little pellet of uranium, I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I think one little pellet of uranium gives enough energy for around 20,000 homes or so, something like that. So you can only imagine how much energy inside of one pellet of uranium that fuels nuclear power plants. So that's the good stuff about nuclear power plants. The only two bad stuff I can think about in terms of nuclear power plants is that it's expensive to build, but that's the cost of having those positive outcomes in terms of having paying lower bills, electrical bills and all that, and having a stable baseload energy, less pollution for the earth, and basically being able to give out energy to so many homes with so little uranium needed for the fueling of the nuclear power plants. And then the other con could possibly be just the fact that stuff like the tsunami that happened at Fukushima could possibly happen, which then the nuclear power plants could break down, or whatever could go wrong would go wrong, and then it gives out radiation and the city has to evacuate. But I do have to say that this new generation of nuclear power plants that are being built in UAE and China currently, those ones are basically the new generation. They're not the old nuclear power plants that are higher risk. So I don't know if that con of nuclear power plants is really valid now, because if a tsunami did hit China, their new generation of nuclear power plants could instantly just shut down, and there would literally be no problem to the city or anything like that.
Yeah.
I do like to also add that the uranium is also used for medical sectors and uses radiation to diagnose, treat diseases such as cancer. Uranium is also into the food and agriculture, which then uses radiation to genetically modify crops. And it's also consumer product. It's inside of consumer products, which relies on radioisotopes as well. So uranium is not just nuclear power plants, but it's also used in your daily life as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's astonishing as well. I mean, I've read some of the stats about the amount of nuclear facilities around the world that are actually in construction or even in the planning stage. I mean, I think in China alone, it was like several hundred in the planning and construction stage.
Absolutely. I think I read a stat saying from now on, every year they're building, I believe, 8 nuclear power plants every year or something like that. I don't exactly know, but for sure China's is wanting to become the leader in nuclear power plants. Right now is the US, but China's thinking forward, and especially with everything that's going on in China in terms of their air pollution, they need to reduce that. China's thinking forward. And so currently, now that Joe Biden is the president of the United States, he passed the joining the Paris Agreement. And so we're hoping that that nuclear power plants will be the future of energy for the U.S. as well, because the U.S. is currently number 1, might be number 2 after China is all said and done with their nuclear power plants. So we'll see what U.S. does, but they have an obligation to the Paris Agreement to meet that standard of zero emission. So we'll see what they do.
Yeah, and that can come from nuclear, can't it, as well? Their energy, I mean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Currently, nuclear power plants are at 10% of the global energy. So hopefully it becomes higher than that.
Yeah. And just talking there on, you said you did some research on Fukushima, and the world would consider it pretty much a disaster. Do you know actually how bad it was? I mean, obviously it was bad, but was it seriously bad? I mean, was there a serious meltdown, and the material's gone through the surface of the earth, and you've got leaking, contaminated water going into the sea? Give me an idea of how bad that incident was.
To be quite honest with you, I read stats, and they honestly were not that bad. Whether I know the stats off of my head, I don't remember numbers right off of my head. It honestly was not that bad. There are websites out there that may portray it as being bad, but reliable, real websites, it wasn't that bad. It's like if you compare it to coal and all of the other energy sources, honestly, nuclear is the safest, most reliable energy source. Coal, like, if you look at China and see what's happening in China in terms of the amount of people that are passing away because of the air they breathe in, and it's because of the amount of coal they burn, that has more of an impact and is more dangerous than nuclear power plants, especially now that nuclear power plants they completely annihilate the fact that if another tsunami hit, that nuclear power plants are going to break down and give out radiation. It's just not going to happen. Technology has advanced so much for that to happen. But unfortunately, I don't have the exact stats of what happened in Japan because there's too many websites giving out different sorts of stats. And but again, if your viewers look into it, it's nowhere as bad as stuff like coal energy.
No, exactly. And you say that the technology now means the reactor can be shut down immediately.
Instantly. They have the control to do that. They can do it instantly.
But the chain reaction, though, wouldn't stop instantly, would it?
If something happens, they can either stop it, or the nuclear power plant has advanced in technology so much to a point where it actually shuts down itself. Within the nuclear power plant, again, I learned about the nuclear power plant a while back. I can't say exactly what happens, but if the water gets too warm, if the water isn't able to stay cool, just what happened in Fukushima is something with the water not being able to stay cool, and then that unleashed the chain reaction. But now, if something like that happened within the nuclear power plant where the water was not cool enough to cool down the depleted uranium or whatever happens in that chain reaction, that the nuclear power plant itself is going to shut down by itself. Simple as that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's safe. I mean, you're right in the sense it's a very, generally speaking, it's the safest and it's the cleanest way of generating energy. I don't know if you've heard of a British scientist called James Lovelock.
I haven't, no.
Well, he came up with this hypothesis called Gaia hypothesis, which is it sort of postulates that the Earth is a self-regulating system and everything works in harmony. Makes a lot of sense. And he on a video I watched a while ago, he was very, very pro nuclear. Said we should just go nuclear, because it's far more better for the world, for people's human health. The amount of CO2 that's exported, and he gave, I can't remember the statistic, but it was something like if you could take all the CO2 that's been emitted from power generation, solidify it, so it's sort of solid and you can see it. It would be like it's mountains. It's huge mountains worth of CO2. If you could capture it and look at it, that's the amount of stuff we put into the atmosphere, which is bad for the environment, bad for human health. And for someone, it surprised me when he said that, because he's very much sort of about ecosystems and nature. But he was there saying, we need power as humans. Nuclear is the best way to go. And it's safe. I mean, I suppose the only one downside is the storage of the waste, isn't it? I guess. But I mean, if you do that right.
Okay, yes. I'm glad you brought that up. So again, another stat I'm not giving out numbers and anything like that, but I like to portray the numbers in more of an image. They say that if you grabbed all of the excess uranium or the depleted uranium after they've been used and you put them into containers, if you had grabbed every single depleted uranium and put them into containers from the day it all started till now, it would it would be around, I believe they said a football field or 2 football fields or 1.5 football fields. It is so tiny compared to the amount of CO2 that's being given out to the global world to breathe in. It's ridiculous. And another thing, if I may add, is that they put this into a container and they put into another container and another container, and there's such a long process into making sure the depleted uranium is safely stored. It is ridiculous. It is a very, very tedious and long process, and the uranium is not going to be able to get through to all of that. And if it does, which I don't know how long into the future that may be, again, they can do more stuff to make sure the uranium is safe and it's not going to do any impact to the world. So I don't believe that people that say, oh, once the uranium depletes, what are they going to do with the remainder? Oh, they're probably just throwing it into the ground. It's not like that. There's a long process. There's a lot of people's lives in jeopardy if they don't do it correctly. So every country takes this very serious.
That statistic actually that you mentioned there rings a bell. I think I've heard that before about the football field. So I mean, it just puts it into perspective for you, doesn't it, when you compare the two?
Yeah.
Okay, well, going forward then, Sam. Everybody's going nuclear. The Chinese, all the Arabian states, the USA. Where's all this supply going to come from? I know there was an oversupply for years and years, but it must be at the point now where the market is almost flat.
Absolutely.
And supply equals demand, but the demand is about to go to the moon if the Chinese are building the amount of reactors that they tell us.
Absolutely. So from 2011 up to 2016, there was a surplus. To give you an actual number, I can't do that only because the amount of secondary supply that hit the market, and so there's no real number. No one really knows exactly how much uranium hit the spot market. And the contracting, their utilities were good to go and were operational throughout that entire time because of the amount of uranium they purchased from 2005 up to 2010 and 11. So they didn't need uranium, and with access to uranium from Japan and Germany and everybody else, or specifically Japan, since they didn't need it, since they shut down every nuclear power plant of theirs, and they very slowly opened up one by one their nuclear power plants throughout that whole decade of 2011 up to today.
Yep.
There was a surplus, but what happened was I believe Cameco and Kazatomprom had enough, and starting from 2016, Cameco suspended the Rabbit Lake mine, which was $4 million out of 4 million pounds off of the spot market. And just want to keep in mind, so the lowest in that decade was the lowest spot price in that decade from 2011 to today was in 2016. It was $18 per pound. So when it was $18 per pound, that's around the time when chemicals planted their Rabbit Lake, which took 4 million pounds off of the spot. Also in 2016, they reduced their MacArthur River by 2 million pounds. Kazatomprom followed suit right after, reducing their production by 10% or 3.5 million pounds. And then around November 2017, Chemical announced that MacArthur River mining and Key Lake milling operations in North Saskatchewan would temporarily be suspended, which then Kazatomprom again followed suit right after, reducing uranium production by 20% for the beginning of 2018. So you can imagine all of this that happened within the 2016 to 2018 supply crunch would have a drastic price to the uranium spot market, which it has. So around end of 2016, it was $18 per pound, and then it drastically shot up to around, I believe, $26 per pound, and then it slowly came down. I'm just giving your viewers a visual of the spot market price for, right now.
Mm-hmm.
2017 July, it was around $20 per pound, so it did come back down. And then, so when in 2017, the end of 2017, when Chemical and Kazatomprom, Kazatomprom reduced their 20% to 20% of their production, and Chemical announced the MacArthur River and Key Lake milling operations to shut down. The price shot to $25 again, and then by the end of 2018, in the beginning of 2019, it was at a peak of $29 per pound. And then there was no shutdowns or anything like that for a while after that. And the uranium spot price again came down to around $25 per pound. And so what really drastically pushed uranium spot price back above $30 per pound, I think 2015 was the last time it was above $30 a pound. So basically 5 years later was actually the COVID-19 that surfaced in the beginning of January. And so around March, when at least over here, like when the market crashed, there was a lot of worry about what's happening in mining districts and all of that. So there was more production cuts and mine closures, and not just in Canada but all over the world. So the price just shot up to around $33 per pound, and so for right now we're sitting at around $30 per pound, and I'm hoping for the uranium price. I think this was like more of a rude awakening, and we went from a surplus to a 55 million pound deficit currently as we speak. So you can only imagine what all these plays from Kazatomprom, from Chemical, and COVID-19 has done to the uranium supply.
I was just looking at the price chart there, and it had it has an astronomical rise starting in about 2003, 2004. All the way over what, 3 years to 2007. Yeah. Huge.
And let's keep in mind, back then there was literally zero deficit. There was none. The only the scare was that I believe I think MacArthur River, MacArthur River, it flooded, and then some other chemical mine also flooded, and I think that's what drove the price up. Besides the fact that utilities were looking to purchase uranium at that time.
Okay.
So even then, we weren't even in a deficit. So you can only imagine what's going to happen to the uranium market once everyone takes notice that we're currently in a 55 million pound deficit, which could potentially become even bigger since there's no mines in that's just going to ramp up production. I hear people saying, "Oh, Kazatomprom could just ramp up production." It's not that easy. It's not like a gold mine or anything like that. It takes a while to just turn on a mine, or even increase production. It is not a gold mine. This is uranium. Just like it's hard to explore and find uranium, it's not. Gold is fairly easy to find some gold, whatever the grade, I don't really know, but it's easier to find gold than it is to find uranium. So people are overestimating how easy it is to
find it.
Yeah.
So let's go on, Kenny.
Yeah. So where does Forum Energy fit into this uranium jigsaw piece or puzzle even?
For sure. So going back to my years in college, studying Forum Uranium at that time. So they changed the name from Forum Uranium to Forum Energy Metals in 2018, since the board basically didn't want to just sit down and not do anything until the uranium market picked up, which they did a great thing about that. Like, that was very smart of them. Some companies would just sit and do nothing and not bring any value to their investors. And at that time, their share price was not in a good spot, and so they knew they had to move on from uranium for now and look into the future. And so they looked into copper and cobalt, and they purchased a property called the Janus Lake sedimentary copper deposit, are very similar to the uranium deposits. So they hired Ken Wheatley, who had a lot of uranium experience. He was in the exploration game since 1980. And he discovered 8 ore bodies, which 6 out of the 8 are being mined or have been mined. And Ken Wheatley is very well respected. He spoke in Saskatchewan mining forums and International Atomic Energy Agency. There's a lot of people also looking to hire Ken Wheatley, but fortunately, Forum Energy at that time got him. So they purchased the Janus Lake. I don't know why I keep saying Janus Lake copper project, and they purchased it for $1 million in 2018. So they did 500,000 cash and shares, and spent another 500,000 doing their drill program at Janus Lake. And then a year later, in 2019, was when they struck a big deal with Rio Tinto for $30 million for 80% of the project. And keep in mind, 3 other big companies were also looking to join Forum Energy at that time. But Rio Tinto was fortunately able to win that bid. And we need to keep in mind that Rio Tinto does not simply just get into projects and make deals with small companies like Forum Energy. I don't exactly know how small Forum Energy was at that time. I think they were like $6 million market cap. So you can only imagine a company like Rio Tinto striking a deal with a $6 million market cap Forum Energy, how much they believe in this Janus Lake copper project, and how much, like, the thing is, Rio Tinto doesn't have many copper projects anymore, and they shut down some mines. So they're looking for some new copper projects, and this could be the next big copper project for sure.
Yeah, no, that's it.
Yeah.
Yep, sorry, I'll let you continue, Sam.
For sure. So back in 2020, they built a winter road into the property, and they're planning on having 80-man camp. And so because of COVID, though, they couldn't really get the 80-man camp there, but they finished their winter drilling program. This winter, February of 2021, mid-February, they're planning on doing a 7,500 meter drill program, 2 diamond drills. And Rio Tinto is going to be running the show, so there's a lot of experienced people that are going to be on the ground and drilling the Genesis Lake project.
Yeah, and that's not the only joint venture that Forum have got, because they've got some joint venture partners for the uranium prospects.
They do. So not only did Rio Tinto do a joint venture with Forum Energy, but also Uranium, which also produces uranium and is one of the biggest, or if not the biggest, mining company in France. They also joined the Fur Island project with Forum Energy Metals, and they're optioned out at $60 million deal for 70% of the Fur Island project. And again, huge company like Orano getting a deal together with Forum Energy is a huge deal. Big companies like this don't do deals like that with small companies. People feel like, big companies like Orano and Rio Tinto can just go and explore themselves. Their job isn't really to explore. Their job is to bring shareholder value and have mines operating and bringing in money. And so they trust the exploration and the properties that small companies like Forum Energy pick up. They trust them, and they'll make deals with companies that they can trust. And so Richard is fortunately very likable within the industry, so he was able to pull these kinds of deals together. And they're not easy to pull off. So Richard's a great CEO for Forum Energy. So going back to Fur Island now, Orano will spend $1.7 million on this drill program currently. So they're going to have 2 diamond drills going, 6,000 altogether, to drill the Fur Island. They did drilling 3,000 meters. They were planning on drilling. They did drill in 2015 3,000 meters, and those drills came out pretty good. And so they did another one in 2020, 1,800 meters, and it was only 1,800 meters because of COVID, unfortunately. But this year, mid-February, they're going to do a 6,000 meter, and hopefully we're going to get the results around April and June.
All right, there's certainly going to be plenty of news flow for Forum in 2021. They've got so many projects and joint ventures on the go, and obviously this has been reflected in the share price as well.
Absolutely. The share price has gone up drastically. I promoted the heck out of Forum Energy when back when I first started my Twitter account, which was around 2018. I believe Forum was at 2018. They were at around 4 cents.
Yep, I think that's about right. Yep.
Yeah, and And I think some people found me crazy to be promoting such a tiny company. And I think I was being brushed off, especially being at a young age too. But I don't know. I believed in the management. I believed in the projects they had, and my conviction grew even more once they decided not to just sit and do nothing and actually go after other commodities such as copper, especially copper, knowing that the now big EV industry is growing drastically with Tesla and all these new electrical vehicles. The demand is growing in the U.S. and America. U.S. and Canada, and in China as well. So that them getting the Janus Lake project was a pretty big deal. Them getting Rio Tinto within the Janus Lake was even a bigger deal. And then the thing is that the share price hasn't really moved that much. Like you would expect when a small company like that joins with such a massive company like Rio Tinto, that the share price would increase drastically. But that hasn't happened. It seems like it was lagging a bit. But then around right after March 25th, their share price increased from, I believe, 6 cents to 15 cents. And then from there on, it decreased to like 12 cents in November. But then as more people, like I see the amount of interest that grew within Twitter about Forum Energy Metals. And so I believe that extra set of eyes that came into Forum has really drastically shot the price from that 12 cents in December to 26, 27 cents around mid-January. And right now we're sitting around 22, 23 cents.
Yeah. I suppose the $1 million question then is then what's your price target for
Forum Energy?
Yeah.
I can't really tell the price target for Forum Energy, honestly. At least not for right now. They still have a lot of drilling to do. Hopefully, they hit a discovery. If they hit a discovery, we could potentially be looking at 50 cents. Again, I don't have as much experience as a lot of other investors. I'm still learning. I still have a huge learning curve to make out of. But maybe if they hit something good, it could sustain 50 cents all the way through to 2022. And then whatever advances from there, we could see double that. We could see $1.50. Again, I don't want to hype the stock. I don't know exactly if it's going to go up that much, but that is the potential it does have.
Cool.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, it's bizarre enough. I mean, when you said when we knew you were coming on the podcast and we got an email intro and you mentioned Forum Energy, I knew a bit about the stock anyway. So it was really handy. But
like we got to keep in mind also, it's like the share price is not just gonna raise because if we find discovery, that's a big catalyst for the company. But uranium and copper has been rising significantly. Uranium not so much currently, obviously, but in the long run it has, and obviously in the future it will drastically go up, I believe. But copper currently has been doing so well, and so I believe that kind of reflects on Forum Energy. So yeah.
All right. Excellent. Well, I think that's almost an hour we've been talking. It's absolute fluent, Sam. Have you got anything to to finish off with, Mark?
The only thing I'd like to know is, well, first of all, say well done on Forum Energy, and it made me smile when you say people were thinking you were crazy, because I've certainly heard that story before when people find a stock that's very much unloved, and people are, why are you buying that rubbish? But you do your research, you look into the management, you look into the project, and I know people who've done extremely well in finding those kind of stocks. But just on stocks that you can buy uraniums, apart from Forum Energy, what else have you got? Anything else you have your eye on that's in the space? I know you mentioned early on it's a fairly small market, uranium. So are there a lot of companies out there, or can you name a few that might be worth researching a bit more?
I would say I personally, because I don't have the sort of capital like some of the other investors out there, to be able to spread out my capital nicely within big companies and small. I'm trying, and this hopefully doesn't break my credibility with some of the viewers, but because my capital is not as big, I'm hoping to hit something big with any of the exploration companies. I'm not going to mention which exploration companies because of the high risk that's involved.
Okay.
But I do encourage investors to look into bigger, well-known companies, companies with discovery and all that. So they can look into energy fuels, next gen, obviously chemical, which would be the safest bet to invest. And just because it has the highest price within the uranium market, they can run up a lot still with the uranium price. Denison's really good. Sky Harbor, that's more of an exploration, but that's a safe exploration bet I like to make too. But yeah, those companies are, in my risk tolerance, they're safer bets than the exploration companies that I'm looking into.
Okay. Cool. Fair enough. Well, thank you very much, Sam. It's been great having a chat with you. I've certainly learned a lot. It's been great to have someone on talking about uranium. Thank you very much for your time, and it'd be great to catch up with you later on in the year.
That would be great. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. That's great.
Thanks, Sam. See you. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to another podcast from Market Musings with Fairbairn and Russell. Tune in next time.